Imagine it like this. One wrong decision by the captain can turn a luxury liner into another Titanic. Yeah, right now I'm gonna tell you how one ship caused the paralysis of the global economy. Together we will dive into stories of storm tragedies and incredible battles between ships and nature. And yes, there will even be captains who simply ran away, leaving their men in trouble. Get ready, it's gonna be a real storm of emotions and events. The event took place in 2012, off the coast of Giglio Island, Italy. The huge cruise ship Costa Concordia fell victim to human error. This ship was like a floating city, with luxurious cabins, restaurants, and entertainment areas. His fate changed in a matter of seconds when Captain Francesco Schettino decided to approach the island for a saluting maneuver. While the tourists were enjoying dinner, the ship hit underwater rocks, causing a giant hole. Within minutes, the liner began to tilt. Panic broke out in the lounges, and passengers tried to evacuate. Schettino, who was later nicknamed Captain Coward, was one of the first to leave the ship, abandoning 4,000 people on board. The incident shocked the world with its scale, leaving 32 dead. The entire evacuation operation was filmed by eyewitnesses, and the crash itself became a symbol of the captain's recklessness, about which documentaries were even made. Every year, millions of containers cross oceans, delivering goods from one corner of the planet to another. However, not all of them make it to their destination. Every year, hundreds of containers end up overboard due to storms, crew errors, or other unforeseen circumstances. Such incidents not only cause significant financial damage, but also lead to environmental disasters and incredible stories. In January 2019, one of the most devastating disasters in the world of container shipping unfolded in the North Sea. The giant container ship MSI Zoe got caught in a powerful storm, resulting in 300 containers going overboard. Among the cargo were hazardous chemicals, expensive electronics, luxury items, and even children's toys. This incident became the largest in terms of financial damage in the history of maritime transport. It also showed just how helpless even the largest ships, equipped with modern technology, can be against the forces of nature. This story reminded me of a few years ago. A container with 30,000 rubber ducks fell off a ship during a storm. These toys started their journey around the world. The ducks were found on the shores of the US, Canada, Hawaii, and even in the Arctic. Scientists used them to study ocean currents. It was March 2021 when the container ship Ever Given entered the Suez Canal, a strategically important waterway connecting Europe and Asia. A ship the size of 4 football fields suddenly veered off course. According to the official version, it was all due to strong winds and a sandstorm. However, there are rumors that human errors might have been to blame. At some point, the giant container ship got turned sideways across the canal. Yeah, it just got stuck. Traffic came to a standstill, and the Suez Canal was completely blocked. You might ask, what's so scary about that? Let's imagine the scale. About 12% of all global trade passes through the Suez Canal every day. It's oil, gas, electronics, clothing, car parts, and even food. Every day of the standstill cost the global economy about $10 billion. Companies were taking losses, and oil prices skyrocketed in just a few hours. For 8 long days, engineers and rescuers from all over the world tried to budge the Ever Given. Excavators, tugs, and even attempts to unload containers were used. But it was like trying to pull a giant cork out of a bottle. In the end, the efforts of a huge number of people finally paid off. After 8 days, they finally got the ship unstuck and traffic resumed, but the consequences were felt for much longer. Companies whose goods were stuck in the canal turned to insurance companies for compensation. And those, in turn, started making claims against the ship owners. Legal battles erupted. By some estimates, the total damage amounted to hundreds of millions of dollars. Just imagine, even a small delay in the supply of microchips caused disruptions across entire supply chains, including the auto industry. As for who was to blame, the responsibility fell on the shoulders of the Japanese company that owned the ship and the Egyptian canal authorities. There were a lot of disputes about who would foot the bill for the chaos. In the end, the damage was covered by insurance payouts and special compensations. On April 7, 1989, the Norwegian Sea became the site of the final mission of the Soviet nuclear submarine K-1. Komsomol member. It was a unique ship with revolutionary technology, capable of diving to a record depth of 5,000 feet. The tragedy began with a fire in the engine room. The flames quickly spread throughout the ship, turning it into a trap for the crew. Rescue operations were complicated by severe storms and lack of support. On board were nuclear torpedoes, which raised additional concerns. This disaster is famous not only for the deaths of 42 people, but also for the rare footage. The recordings of the rescue operations were captured from the air. The incident showed just how vulnerable even the most advanced military technologies are to natural forces and human factors. October 1991, Atlantic Ocean. The fishing vessel Andrea Gale fell victim to a unique weather phenomenon called the perfect storm. This combination of three powerful cyclones created waves as high as 100 feet. There were 6 sailors on board who were fighting for their lives in conditions that can only be described as apocalyptic. Their last contact with the shore was one of despair. "We're going down." These words became a symbol of the struggle between man and nature. Why does this case stand out so much? Based on the events, a book was written and then a film was made. The Perfect Storm. Even though the ship was never found, the footage of the storm remains in people's memories as proof of the ocean's ruthlessness. 5 years ago in Venice, a giant cargo ship, the MSC Opera, was involved in an incident that shocked both tourists and locals. The liner, over 900 feet long and operated by an experienced crew, suddenly lost control in the Giudecca Canal. Video footage taken by eyewitnesses shows the huge ship slowly but inexorably heading towards the pier. Its horn sounds ominously as people on the shore run in panic. The vessel collided with the dock and a tourist boat that had dozens of passengers on board. Fortunately, there were no fatalities, but the injured sustained serious injuries. This event became a striking example of the dangers of navigating narrow channels, especially with such large vessels. It was after this incident that the authorities in Venice began discussing a ban on large cruise ships entering the city. 2016, South Korea. The surveillance footage shows a speedboat at full throttle crashing into a bridge support in the city of Incheon. The boat was moving at an incredible speed, and the pilot just couldn't hit the brakes in time. The impact was so strong that the hull of the boat literally tore apart. On board were tourists, 3 of whom died, and several others sustained serious injuries. The boat driver, as it turned out later, was inexperienced and ignored the warning signs to slow down. This case serves as an example of how negligence and ignorance of navigation rules can lead to disaster, even on a small vessel. Port San Juan, Puerto Rico. The cruise ship Norwegian Epic came into port to fix a broken engine, but instead of a quiet stay, everything went wrong. The vessel, more than 1,000 feet long, lost control and crashed into the dock, destroying it. Eyewitnesses captured the moment when the huge liner literally kissed the pier, leaving behind destroyed structures and broken boats. There were about 4,000 passengers on board, but thankfully, none of them were hurt. This incident became famous thanks to numerous video eyewitnesses and became a clear example of how complex mechanisms can fail even in high-tech airliners. This incident happened 20 years ago and became one of the most terrifying maritime disasters in modern times. The ferry Al Salam Bocacho was carrying 1,500 people from Saudi Arabia to Egypt when a fire broke out on board. The problem started in the cargo hold. The fire from the overheated engine spread at an incredible speed. The vessel, built 50 years ago, had outdated safety systems, which only made the situation worse. In a panic, the captain didn't send out a distress signal, hoping to handle the fire on his own. That turned out to be a fatal mistake. A few hours later, the ship capsized and sank, taking the lives of over 1,000 people. The cameras on board captured terrifying footage. People jumping overboard, engulfed in flames. The disaster was a wake-up call for maritime safety and forced the world to rethink passenger transport standards. You'd think that after the Titanic, something like this wouldn't happen again, but no, listen to the next story. November 2007, waters of Antarctica. The cruise ship MS Explorer collided with an iceberg. There were 150 people on board, and they all faced extreme conditions. The impact breached the hull, and the ship began to fill with icy water. Passengers evacuated onto lifeboats, waiting for help. The air temperature was just above freezing, and the hurricane-force winds made the situation even worse. The evacuation was successfully captured on camera, and the ship became the first cruise liner to sink in Antarctica. This case is unique in that it was the first warning about the risks of mass tourism in extreme regions. The next story took place 40 years ago in the city of Tampa, Florida. The tanker, MV Summit Venture collided with the Sunshine Skyway Bridge, causing one of the world's worst maritime disasters. In the morning, in conditions of thick fog, the tanker captain lost his orientation. The ship veered off course and crashed into a bridge support. From the impact, 1,200 feet of roadway collapsed into the water, along with several cars and a charter bus. 35 people lost their lives. The tanker itself stayed afloat, but the aftermath of the disaster was devastating. This incident became a symbol of the importance of navigation technology and clear safety protocols. The bridge's collapse was captured by eyewitnesses, and the footage of the tragedy became a lesson for engineers all over the world. Lake Tapps, Missouri. A tourist boat, known as a duck because of its amphibious design, sank during a powerful storm. There were 30 people on board. Storm warnings were issued several hours before the tragedy, but the captain decided to continue the route. Waves as high as 6 feet flipped the boat in just a few minutes. Passengers desperately tried to save themselves, but due to the lack of life jackets, 17 people lost their lives. Witnesses captured the tragedy on camera, and the video of the sinking quickly spread across the internet. This event serves as a stark example of how ignoring natural warnings can have deadly consequences. Giglio Island, Italy. Although the crash of the Costa Concordia has been discussed before, it's important to focus on the human factor. Captain Francesco Schettino made the decision to perform a risky maneuver to impress the passengers and locals. This display of skill ended in a collision with the rocks. The captain abandoned the ship long before the evacuation was completed, sparking a storm of criticism. His actions became a symbol of negligence, and the phrase, "Get back on board, Captain," went down in history as a call for responsibility. This case stands out because it became a cautionary tale about leadership and the consequences of arrogance. Typically, sailors are well versed in meteorology and weather forecasts, but in the next story, things went a different way. During the annual sailing regatta on Lake Constance, a sudden storm caused chaos among the participants. More than 50 sailboats collided with each other or capsized. Cameras captured a sudden gust of wind flipping boats one after another. Fortunately, all the participants were rescued, but many had to spend hours in the icy water before they were found. This case became a striking example of how nature can disrupt even the best-laid plans. IN. In 2016, off the coast of North Carolina, the cruise ship Anthem of the Seas was caught in a powerful storm with winds up to 120 miles per hour. There were over 4,000 passengers on board, trapped among giant waves. The ship tilted at a 45-degree angle, and furniture and equipment started flying around the cabins, causing panic among the people. Despite all the technology, the plane narrowly avoided crashing. The event was filmed by passengers and footage of the storm quickly went viral, showing that even modern ships are not always prepared for the forces of nature. The world of shipping has come a long way in recent decades. Today, ships and boats are equipped with a variety of technologies that significantly reduce the likelihood of collisions. One of the key systems is GPS, which allows captains accurately determining the ship's location and following safe routes even in poor visibility conditions. Radio communication plays a huge role in coordinating vessels. With it, crews can warn each other about potential threats and quickly respond to changing circumstances. Modern alert systems, like the IS, or automatic identification system, allow for real-time tracking of ship movements, helping to avoid collisions even in the busiest ports. Another innovation is autopilot systems. They use data from sensors, radars, and cameras to adjust the ship's course without human intervention. These technologies make shipping safer by eliminating human errors, which often lead to disasters. The future promises us even more innovations. For example, systems based on artificial intelligence are being developed that will be able to predict collision risks and automatically take measures to prevent them. Thanks to these technologies, incidents like the ones you learned about today will become rare. But on the other hand, it is precisely because of these dramatic events that we have the opportunity to think about the risks and watch this video. The stories captured on camera are not only impressive, but also teach the importance of being attentive and careful. If you found this interesting, give it a like and let us know in the comments which story impressed you the most. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next videos.